So as the dust of deadline day has now settled, today's video is all about the top two race and especially Bournemouth's transfer dealings. I want to get your guys' thoughts on this one in the comments down below, and this clip you're about to see is taken from the Football 365 debate show. Loads of great content going out on Football 365 every week, preview articles, reaction articles and things like that. And also make sure to go ahead and check out the brilliant Benjamin Bloom and the Second Tier podcast. Links to those guys down below. But without any further ado, let's jump into the debate. Alright guys, welcome back to the big championship debate. We've just had the transfer window closing, and probably the biggest story coming out of deadline day was Bournemouth, who have gone ahead and pretty much signed half the championship, haven't they? Quickly running through the deals that they've got done, particularly on deadline day here. Kiefer Moore coming in, Siriki Dembele, Freddie Woodman, Nat Phillips, Todd Cantwell, and that's to add to both James Hill and Ethan Laird, who had previously come in as well. It is a ridiculously stacked looking squad at the moment. And I suppose we're here to debate the question, were Bournemouth right to go ahead and gamble in this window now? Is there the opportunity for them to go up? Because they've sort of thrown all their eggs into this one basket. And then I guess that'll generally open up the debate for the further question of, I don't know, parachute payments and ethics at the top of the championship and things like that. It's going to be an interesting debate, whatever. We'll go around for a general first sort of view from you guys. Ben, we'll come to you first of all. In a few sentences, what's your sort of summary on all of this from Bournemouth?
The first thing we need to say is none of this is personal towards Bournemouth. We're talking about the system.
That's not what you're saying off air.
We're talking about the system that Bournemouth are working in. To cut it short, is it a gamble? Yes. Look at some of the teams who've lost in the playoff final in the last 5 years. Would I do it? Quite possibly.
Interesting. Ryan, we'll come to you. What's your quick sort of summary on this one?
It's definitely a gamble. It seems like Bournemouth have gone all in on getting promoted this season by ultimately just throwing money at it. What that says about Bournemouth's financial future, I'm sure we'll get onto very shortly.
And then Justin, for you, are you sort of on a similar mindset to these two?
Yeah, it's a gamble. I think actually no, it's not a gamble. I've changed my mind completely at the last second. It's not a gamble. And the reason why I don't think it's a gamble is because I think Bournemouth have got enough assets to cover their arses if it does go tits up, to be absolutely blunt.
Interesting. A few different points there to pick up on. Ben, we'll throw this one back over to you. In terms of some of the players that have come in, you can pick out some of the individual deals and stuff like that in terms of how you think their squad's shaping up. And do you think this has been the case of Bournemouth sensing their chance to pounce on the other teams around them? Do you think they have that feeling that the top of the championship isn't quite as strong as it has been in previous years? You know, they're really only fighting with the juggernaut of Fulham, and then West Brom, the other parachute teams, are sort of way behind them at the moment. Yeah, what's your sort of overall views on this one in a little bit more detail?
Well, you are totally right about the timing aspect of it. Whether you agree with gambling, now is clearly the time to do it, because they weren't going to give Jason Tindall the money. Or, like you said, they may have been very clever. They may have looked at Norwich and Brentford. You had Brentford, who were a non-parachute team, who were basically as powerful as a parachute team because they're brilliant recruitment. And Watford, of course, who boss it at this level. Were they going to do it last season under Jason Tindall and latterly Jonathan Woodgate? Possibly not. Were they going to do it in the summer with Scott Parker just getting in there? And he got in there quite late, didn't he? As well, after the to and fro with the Khans at Fulham. So if you're going to do it midway through the parachute payments, we all know they dropped from 35 million to 15 million. I'm sure that's going to go up as the Premier League TV money keeps going up and up and up and up. So definitely doing it now is the right thing to do if you agree in principle with the sort of idea of gambling. By the way, when we use the word gambling, I do agree with Justin. This is putting a punt on a team being 1-0 up with 15 minutes to go, not putting a punt on a 3-3 draw between Blackpool and Bristol City this weekend. if you were working out the odds of the gamble, it's sure odds. They need to go up one place. But there is the doomsday scenario that on the last day of the season, they drop from second place to third place. They lose. They get a red card in the second leg of the playoff semi-final and lose on penalties with their goods. It can happen. And where is my playoff thing on my wall? Sheffield Wednesday, Reading, Derby all got to the playoff final is all I need to say. Let me just quickly give you the numbers because I've got them right in front of me. So operating loss 3 years ago, 11 million. 2 years ago, 32 million, obviously both in the Premier League. So again, don't start me on that being out of jurisdiction for the EFL. It's ridiculous. We all know it's ridiculous. That's not Bournemouth's fault. Last set of accounts, £60 million loss. And of course, that includes COVID, but it's not a good number to be making your starting point. But of course, we know with the Aston Villa example, and we get some very pedantic Aston Villa fans telling us, Aston Villa didn't break FFP. No, they didn't. If they'd have been in the Championship 10 seconds longer, they would have.
Ryan, we'll come to you next. To pick up on there where Ben sort of finished off and give a few more of your detailed views on, but also with what they've gone ahead and done now and the players they brought in and who they're sort of up against at the moment.
Didn't answer that at all, did I, Ben? I'm so sorry.
No, you got there in a roundabout way. But I'm interested though from Ryan, and we'll come back on all of you guys for this one. How big of an underachievement do you think it would be if they aren't to get promoted with this squad compared to where they are now and what they're up against?
It will be absolutely massive, Ben. It will be one of... You can't put it into words how big an underachievement it will be. I was having a look through, and it's hard to say considering we don't know the details with the Cantwell and Woodman loan deals. But when you add up all the loan fees and transfer fees that Bournemouth spent on deadline day, for my money, it looks like they've spent more than Blackburn and QPR have put together in the past 2 seasons. So... And I was just having a quick flick through the Bournemouth squad now. I was going through each player and having an estimate about what each of their wages would be. I counted 23 players who I would expect to be on at least 10 grand a week. So, and that's not even taking into account the likes of Solanke, for example, who I'm guessing would be on around 50 grand a week. So the figures that you've got here being spent by Bournemouth are astronomical compared to some of the other teams around there. We expected at the start of the season, didn't we, that, well, most people seem to, that it would be the 4 parachute payment teams who would be in the top 4 come the end of the season. And as the season's gone on, we thought, hang on a minute, that might not be the case due to other circumstances at the other 2 clubs. But now it's looking very likely that we may very well end up in the situation that the 2 promoted teams, or actually all 3 promoted teams, could end up being the parachute payment sides again. And that would be incredibly sad. I was having a look through the 9 teams have been promoted. Well, if, for example, say if 3 teams who had parachute payments got promoted this season, that would make it 7 out of 9 teams from the past 3 seasons who have been promoted through parachute payments or
Not
with parachute payments by their
Ryan.
side. Not an advantage, apparently, which is just absolute baloney at this point, isn't it? You've got Bournemouth who have seen that they're in a bit of a pickle at the moment and have decided, right, we'll splurge all our money on these players, and it's just ridiculous. They're spending $1.5 million on Nat Phillips's loan fee alone, plus his wages. I don't even want to start to think about what his wages will be. So it's just ridiculous that a club is allowed to flex its financial muscles as much as this. And now you've got QPR and Blackburn who have gone about it the honest way of, building a team with very little funds, and are probably going to be pipped because they haven't simply got as much money as the other teams above them.
Justin, what's your overall take on this one? Do Bournemouth have enough to sort of cover themselves here if the worst case scenario was to unfold?
I think they do. If you think, Ben obviously mentioned the losses over the last 3 years up until the Championship season. They came down. Nathan Ake went to Man City for 40 million. Callum Wilson went to Newcastle for 25 million. Ramsdale to Sheffield United for around 20 million. So that's a massive income. Then you've got Dan Juma who went this summer.
That would have been included in those accounts, Justin, I think.
The 1920
wouldn't.
accounts.
It wouldn't.
No,
It wouldn't.
it'll be last year's. It'll be last year's
I've got 'em
accounts.
I've got them right in front of me. What those sales are going to go through in the next one.
So yeah, the next lot of
Okay,
accounts
yeah,
that come out this year will include those sales.
Sure.
But
Okay.
then you go into this season, there's Dan Juma, Sam Surridge. So they have already sold a lot of their assets and probably offset their losses in a way. I'm going to sound like an Arsenal fan, but it's all about net spend. And when you look at that perspective, I know they spent a lot on loan fees. I think Todd Cantwell's is a loan with a view to a permanent.
Can we just talk about promotion bonuses, please? Because no one's mentioned them. Todd Cantwell will, I'm guessing, at least £1 million if Bournemouth get promoted, right?
But that doesn't matter.
Everybody does that, by the way.
Yeah, that wouldn't matter anyway, because obviously they're going to get the Premier League money all over again once they get up. So financially, they're going to be fine. Obviously, the argument of Bournemouth and the parachute payments having a disparity of the competition, yes, you can argue that Bournemouth have had an advantage, but at the same time, they have sold key assets to offset the losses, to give them a bit more of a parachute down into the Championship, and they can do the same this summer if they don't go up. Dominic Solanke, Lloyd Kelly, the likes of Jaden Anthony, Gavin Kilkenny's come through, Mark Travers, they've all been brilliant. They're all big assets, Jefferson Lerma as well. And if they all get sold, the players that they brought in, Kiefer Moore, arguably one of the Championship's best strikers when he's on form. Siriki Dembele, got a lot of potential as well. Jamal Lowe, very good at this level. Ryan Christie, again, has proved to be very effective at this level. So it is a gamble. It is a risk. And there's also trusting Scott Parker with all of this as well, which there's a lot of question marks around that. I do feel like Bournemouth have covered themselves a little bit with the players that they've got and the players that they brought in, because even if they sell all their best players this summer, if they don't go up, they've still got a very good chance next season. Parachute payments, I think, is a slightly different argument. They do have an advantage, but for me, it's not as much of a gamble for Bournemouth as it might seem to be.
Yeah, some really interesting points brought up there. We'll go round everyone one final time. We probably don't have the time to debate parachute payments, and that will probably come as a future video and things like that. But if you have any other points on them, feel free to add them in. And as the sort of final question that I've got, I think we're all pretty unanimous that Fulham have probably claimed that number one spot. I want to know your top two prediction, basically. Are Bournemouth getting in there, or do Blackburn, QPR, dare I say, any of the teams below them, West Brom, if they get their act together, do any of them have enough to see off this Bournemouth side? What's your top two prediction? Ben, we'll go to you first of all.
So, parachute payments, look, we all understand that parachute payments are one part of the inequality problems. No one is sitting here and saying that if you remove parachute payments, everything gets solved like that. It doesn't. We know, we get it. We just feel that the cliff edges need to be sorted out. And that, of course, comes down Champions League, top echelon Premier League, bottom half, relegated, parachute 1, 2, 3, Championship, League 1, cliff edges everywhere. So I don't think anyone's, saying that thing. And yes, we get back they are a necessary evil. Fine. My car's a necessary evil, but is that where we stop the conversation and don't do anything about pollution? Or do you know what I mean? That's the start of the conversation and how we improve things, etc. I looked up while Ryan was on about the wage bill. So in 2020, £107 million wage bill that Bournemouth were relegated with. So we're thinking that within the 3 years, that would need to be cut. Well, I don't know. You tell me. We're talking telephone numbers. Justin is right, and it's good that we have the balance that, yes, they have sold players, and forgive me there, that doesn't go on the £60 million COVID losses numbers that they put in. That's backdated a year. So, yes, fine, there will be, some nice numbers coming in. I would mitigate that as well. We did all read about historical payments owed when Bournemouth were relegated. So, if we're going to factor in the sales, we need to factor in that some of that may have been immediately swamped up and not going into the Championship pot, which is, of course, swelled by those juicy bits of TV money. In terms of the top two and the players, the only thing, Ben, is how many is too many, and does it unbalance things? And, Scott Parker's not going to play two up top, so is Kiefer Moore there for 30 minutes at the end of every game if they're not winning. I don't know. You tell me. Top two, I suspect they'll probably be in the top two by the end of the season. And by the way, when Ryan says QPR and Blackburn have done it the honest way, no one's saying that Bournemouth have done anything dishonest. Do not make that leap, by the way. He literally did not say that. But they're leveraging what advantage they have got. And would I love to see a brilliant 10 in a row from QPR or Blackburn? Maybe. I'm not a socialist, but maybe the socialist in me would like to see something like that occur, because it is a dominant thing. And I can see you're all laughing at me, so I'm going to stop ranting about equality. I want equality.
Never lets us down when it comes to that. Ryan, your sort of closing statements on this one and your top two prediction.
I echo a lot of what Benjamin Bloom has just said, and thank you for covering my backside at the same time as well. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I agree with what a lot what you're saying about the wage bill in particular, because I think the wage bill must be pretty similar to those levels now. And Danjuma, sure, they sold him for 20 million in the summer. That's not going to cover
5-year contract, Ryan, as well. That
exactly.
Could be 4 million a year.
Yeah, exactly. That's not going to cover the massive wages that they're paying now. So it'll be very interesting to see when their next accounts come out, which I'm going to guess will be next month or maybe the month after. They'll come out in the next couple of months anyway, and that will be giving us a clearer picture, I imagine, of what Bournemouth's financial situation actually is and whether there's going to be a massive fire sale in the summer. But will they get promoted? I'd say right now they're the favourites to finish second, purely because of the business that they did on deadline day. I will say that I don't particularly think all of the signings have strengthened them actually that much. I think Nat Phillips obviously has. The others, I think, are just adding to an even more bloated squad. You've got Siriki Dembele, who is probably the 10th winger they've got now. They've got a ridiculous amount of wingers. Todd Cantwell, is he going to play on the wing as well? I'm not really sure. Is he coming in as a centre mid or is he coming in as a winger? So I'm not really sure with that one either. Freddie Budman, Mark Travers has been one of the best keepers in the division for my money this season. So is he really going to go there to play number two? I'm not really too sure. So I all find it a bit weird. And Keith Moore is obviously a backup striker for my money because he's not better than Dominic Solanke. So I find the whole business they've done a bit weird. I think they've definitely strengthened, particularly with Nat Phillips. And I definitely put them down as my favourites to finish number two. But I think every neutral across the championship will be hoping that if another team, that it is a QPR or a Blackburn who goes up instead of Bournemouth, purely because they've looked at the problem and thought, right, we'll just chuck more money at it.
Justin, you've got the final say on this one. Are they making the top two in your overall final thoughts?
I don't think they are. And I look at what Scott Parker did with the likes of Anthony Okiar and Ivan Cavaliero at Fulham in that promotion season. I know he delivered a playoff finish, but that squad should have been top two, not only with the money they spent on it, but also the players they had available to them should have been top two by some distance. And they weren't. They were quite average at times. They were quite lackluster, quite boring. And I'm starting to see a little bit of that sink in and filter into this Bournemouth side. And for that reason, I don't think anyone that they sign is going to change that. I like the look of Bournemouth in the first half of the season, or during that unbeaten run at the start of the season. They looked really, really good. There was a nice balance to them. They press well. They were seeing out games really well. It was a mix of possession ball, pressing and pressing football. Now it's just sunk back into that Scott Parker era at Fulham, where it's gone a bit boring, a bit bland. And I don't think a Todd Cantwell, a Kiefer Moore, Siriki Dembele, I don't think it's going to change that. I think he's too set in his way, Scott Parker, to get the very best out of each individual available to him. So for that reason, I don't think Bournemouth are going to finish in the top two. I personally, and I've said this quite a few times already, I fancy Blackburn. The reason why I fancy Blackburn is because they've got this unity, they've got this belief. I think, Ben, you said last week, they've got this muscle memory of just winning games, just performing well. And I think that goes a long way in teams. Defensively, they're very well balanced. They're aggressive. And they play that kind of football that is both attacking and defensive at the same time, which seems a really obvious comment, but at times they can look really defensive, but at times they can look brilliant going forwards. And they've yet to really have their full squad available to them as well, which is quite interesting. And once you put Rothwell back into that midfield, you put Ben Brereton Diaz back up front, and then you mix in the new signings like Ryan Giles. Christ Almighty, they're going to be a good side in that second half of the season.
Justin Peach dropping the Blackburn bombshell to end off today's video. Very much enjoyed this one, guys, and we welcome your guys' comments to this one down below. By no means is this an attack on Bournemouth or anything like that. They are just the vehicle to sort of open up this wider conversation. But yeah, thank you very much for tuning in to today's video, guys. As always, get all your thoughts down below. We'll see you all in the next one.
A gamble is a good gamble if you win.